I'm 55 years old. And I thought I'd learned everything there was to know about grief. I was wrong. I lost my husband, Daniel, 2 years ago. Sudden heart attack. He was 57. We were supposed to grow old together. We were supposed to retire next year, travel to all the places we'd talked about visiting but never had time for. Italy, Greece, New Zealand. Instead, I buried him on a cold Tuesday in March. The funeral was packed. Daniel was one of those people everyone loved. He coached Little League for 15 years. He volunteered at the community center. He remembered everyone's birthday. When he walked into a room, people smiled. And then he was just gone. One moment, he was laughing at the dinner table, telling me about some ridiculous thing that happened at work. The next moment, his face went pale. He clutched his chest. He looked at me with this expression of complete surprise, like he couldn't believe what was happening. I called 911. I did CPR while I waited for the ambulance. I did everything the dispatcher told me to do. But he was already gone. The doctors told me later that it was quick, massive heart attack. He probably didn't feel any pain. That's supposed to be comforting, I guess. That's supposed to make it easier. It doesn't. Nothing makes it easier. After the funeral, after all the casseroles and sympathy cards and awkward condolence visits, I was alone, completely alone. Our daughter lives in Portland with her family. She wanted me to move out there to be closer to her and the grandkids, but I couldn't leave. Because of the house. More specifically, because of the tree. The oak tree in our backyard was ancient. Probably 200 years old, maybe older. It was there long before our house was built, long before this whole neighborhood existed. Its trunk was so wide that 3 people holding hands couldn't wrap their arms around it. The branches stretched out like massive arms, creating a canopy that shaded nearly half our backyard. My father had been obsessed with that tree. He was a city planner for 33 years. He spent his entire career thinking about urban development, green spaces, historical preservation. And when he bought this house, back in 1978, when I was just a kid, the first thing he did was register the oak tree with the state forestry department. He got it officially designated as a monument tree. That meant it was protected. You couldn't cut it down. You couldn't even trim it without special permission. The state took monument trees seriously. They were part of the natural heritage, part of history. My dad kept all the paperwork, all the certificates, all the property surveys. He had a filing cabinet in his home office filled with documents, deeds, maps, blueprints, municipal records. He was meticulous about that stuff, almost obsessive. When he died 10 years ago, my mom wanted to throw all of it away. "It's just old paper," she said. "It's taking up space." But I couldn't do it. It felt wrong. Those files were my dad's legacy, his life's work, in a way, so I packed them all up and stored them in our basement. I never thought I'd need them. And the tree, God, that tree. That's where Daniel proposed to me. It was September, 30 years ago. We'd been dating for 2 years. I was 25. He was 27. We just bought this house together, our first house. It needed work, the roof leaked, the kitchen was from the 1960s, the carpet was hideous, but it was ours. We spent that whole first summer renovating, painting walls, ripping up old flooring, planting flower beds. And every evening, when we were too exhausted to do anything else, we'd sit under that oak tree. We'd drink cheap wine and watch the sunset and talk about our future. One evening in September, Daniel didn't sit down. He just stood there looking at me. He seemed nervous. I asked him what was wrong. He didn't say anything. He just took my hand. And then he asked me to marry him. No ring, no elaborate plan, no getting down on one knee. Just him, standing under that tree, asking me to spend the rest of my life with him. I said yes before he even finished the question. We got married 6 months later. We raised our daughter in this house. We celebrated every birthday, every anniversary, every holiday right here. We hung a tire swing from one of the oak's branches when our daughter was little. We put up Christmas lights in the tree every December. We had family photos taken in front of it. That tree was part of our family. So when Daniel died, I couldn't leave. Because leaving would mean leaving him, leaving all those memories, leaving the spot where our life together really began. I know that sounds dramatic. I know it's just a tree, just wood and leaves and roots. But it was more than that. It was the last piece of Daniel I had left. The neighborhood had changed a lot over the years. When we first moved in, it was mostly older families, people WH. OD lived here for decades, everyone knew each other, it was quiet, peaceful. But over the past 10 years, younger people started moving in. Families with small kids, couples fixing up the older houses, flipping them, selling them for twice what they paid. The neighborhood got louder, more crowded, more intense. And then Karen moved in. 5 years ago, right across the street. I remember the day she arrived. A moving truck, lots of expensive-looking furniture, a luxury SUV. She was probably in her early 50s. Blonde hair with expensive highlights, perfectly manicured nails, designer sunglasses. She introduced herself to everyone on the street within the first week. Big smile, firm handshake. She brought over a basket of muffins, store-bought, I could tell, but she pretended she'd made them herself. "We're going to be such good neighbors," she'd said. I should have known right then. Within 3 months, she'd somehow gotten herself elected president of the HOA. Our neighborhood technically had a homeowners association, but it had always been pretty loose. Just basic stuff. Keep your lawn mowed. Don't paint your house fluorescent orange. Don't park broken down cars on the street. Common sense things. But when Karen took over, everything changed. Suddenly there were rules, so many rules. Your trash cans had to be put away within 2 hours of pickup. Your mailbox had to be a specific shade of black. Holiday decorations couldn't go up before a certain date or stay up past a certain date. Your grass couldn't be longer than 3 inches. Your car couldn't be parked on the street overnight. And if you broke a rule, fines, warnings, threatening letters on HOA letterhead. Karen walked around the neighborhood with a clipboard taking notes, writing down violations, taking photos. She had a little crew of women who followed her around her committee. They'd stand in her driveway, drinking wine, gossiping, judging everyone. Most people just went along with it. It was easier than fighting, easier than dealing with the constant complaints and passive-aggressive notes. But some people pushed back, and when they did, Karen made their lives hell. There was this one guy, Tom, who lived 3 houses down. He put up a basketball hoop in his driveway for his kids. Karen said it violated the aesthetic standards of the neighborhood. She sent him a letter demanding he remove it. He refused. She fined him. He still refused. So she reported him to the county, claiming the hoop was a safety hazard. She made his life so miserable that he eventually just took it down. That's who Karen was. She didn't just like rules, she liked power. And after Daniel died, she turned her attention to me. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to be kind. She showed up at my door a few days after the funeral, brought a casserole, said all the right things. "I'm so sorry for your loss. If you need anything, just let me know." But then she started making comments. "Your grass is looking a little long. I know you're going through a hard time, but we do have standards. Those bushes along your fence need trimming. They're starting to look overgrown. Have you thought about repainting your shutters? They're looking pretty faded." Every visit, every conversation, some new criticism wrapped up in fake concern. I ignored her mostly. I had bigger things to worry about than lawn care. I was barely getting out of bed most days. I was surviving, not thriving. But Karen didn't care. And then she started talking about the tree. It started subtle. "That oak tree is so big, must block a lot of light." Then it got more direct. "Have you ever thought about trimming it back? I think it would really open up the view." And finally, outright demands. "That tree is affecting property values. It needs to be dealt with." I told her no, obviously. The tree wasn't hurting anyone. It was beautiful. It was protected, and it was none of her business. But she didn't stop. She brought it up at HOA meetings. She complained to other neighbors. She even sent me a formal letter from the HOA claiming the tree was a nuisance and demanding I have it professionally assessed. I threw the letter away. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought she'd move on to bothering someone else. I was wrong. Last month, my sister called me. She'd been begging me to visit her in Florida for months. I kept making excuses. Too much to do, too tired, not ready. But finally, I said yes, just for a week. Maybe getting away would help. Maybe a change of scenery would give me some perspective. I booked a flight. I arranged for George, my neighbor on the other side, to water my plants and grab my mail. George was a sweet old man, retired teacher. He'd been nothing but kind to me since Daniel died. I didn't tell anyone else I was leaving. Why would I? It wasn't anyone's business. I definitely didn't tell Karen. I left on a Monday morning. The week in Florida was nice. My sister and I went to Beach. We ate too much seafood. We drank margaritas and watched bad TV and didn't talk about anything serious. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in 2 years. But the whole time, I had this weird, nagging feeling, like I'd forgotten something important, like something was wrong. I told myself I was being paranoid. On Thursday afternoon, I left my phone in the hotel room when we went out for lunch. I didn't realize until we got back 2 hours later. When I picked it up, I had 7 missed calls from George. 7. My heart started pounding. I called him back immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Thank God," he said. His voice was shaking. "I've been trying to reach you all day." "What's wrong? Is it the house? Is there a fire?" No, it's not that. He paused. "It's the tree." My stomach dropped. "What about the tree?" "They cut it down." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" "Karen, she hired a tree service. They showed up this morning with a crew and equipment. I tried to stop them. I told them you didn't authorize it, but they had a work order from the HOA. They said it was legal. They said." "Where is it?" I interrupted. "Where's the tree?" "It's gone," George said quietly. "They cut it down, all of it. There's just a stump left." I couldn't breathe. I ended the call. I booked the next flight home. I didn't sleep that night. The plane ride was a blur. I kept picturing the tree, the branches, the shade, the spot where Daniel proposed, all of it gone. George picked me up from the airport Sunday afternoon. He looked terrible, tired, guilty. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I should have done more. I should have called the police or—" "It's not your fault," I said. But I wasn't really listening. I was just staring out the window, watching the familiar streets go by, dreading what I was about to see. When we pulled onto my street, I saw neighbors standing in their yards, watching. A few of them saw me and quickly looked away. And then I saw my house. My yard. The tree was gone. Not trimmed, not cut back, completely, utterly gone. There was just a stump, raw and jagged. The ground around it was torn up, covered in sawdust and tire tracks. The grass was destroyed. There were deep gouges in the earth where the heavy equipment had driven through. It looked like a bomb had gone off. George stopped the car. I sat there frozen. I don't know how long I sat there, maybe a minute, maybe 10. Finally, I got out. I walked across the lawn slowly. My legs felt like they weren't mine. Everything felt distant, unreal. I reached the stump and stopped. It was huge. The cut was clean, professional, but you could still see the rings. Decades and decades of growth. 200 years of history, cut down in an afternoon. I reached out and touched it. The wood was still damp, fresh. This had happened recently, yesterday maybe, or this morning. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. Karen was walking across the street toward me. She was smiling, wearing a bright yellow sundress and white sandals, like she was going to brunch. "You're back," she said cheerfully. "How was your trip?" I stared at her. She stopped a few feet away, hands on her hips, looking at the stump like she was admiring her work. "I know this is probably a bit of a shock," she said, "but honestly, it's for the best. That tree was way too big. It was blocking the view for half the street. And it was starting to look kind of scraggly, old and tired." I still didn't say anything. "The tree service did an amazing job, don't you think?" she continued. "Very professional, and they cleaned up most of the mess. Your yard is going to look so much better once you reseed the grass. More open, more light, you'll see." "You cut down my tree," I said. My voice sounded flat, hollow. "Well, technically, the HOA authorized the removal. It was a community decision. We took a vote and everything." "When?" "Last month, at the meeting. You weren't there, obviously, but everyone agreed it needed to go." "You had no right." Karen laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, come on, don't be dramatic, it's just a tree. And honestly, it was kind of an eyesore. This whole area is going to look so much cleaner now." She stepped closer, put her hand on my shoulder. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit her. I wanted to do something, anything, to make her understand what she'd just done. But I didn't. I just stood there. "I know this is hard for you," Karen said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You're a widow, you're alone, you're going through a tough time, but you need to understand this is bigger than you. This is about the community, about property values, about making sure our neighborhood looks its best." She squeezed my shoulder. "You'll thank me eventually," she said. "Trust me." And then she walked away, back across the street to her perfect house with her perfect lawn. I stood there in my destroyed yard, staring at the stump of the tree where my husband proposed to me. And something inside me went cold. Not sad, not angry. Just cold. That night, I went down to the basement. I found the boxes of my father's files, the ones my mom had wanted to throw away, the ones I'd kept all these years. I brought them upstairs and spread them out on the kitchen table. It took me hours to go through everything: property surveys, deed records, municipal documents, letters from the state forestry department. And then I found it. The monument tree certificate, signed, sealed, official. And the property survey from 1952, the original lot lines, the exact boundaries of my land. I studied the survey carefully. I compared it to the current layout of the neighborhood. I pulled up satellite images on my laptop. And I started to smile. Because Karen hadn't just cut down my tree. She'd committed a federal crime. And she'd been trespassing on my property for 5 years. See that white picket fence in her backyard? The one she was so proud of. The one that bordered her precious landscaped garden. It was built 3 meters onto my land. 3 full meters. I checked the survey 3 times. I measured it on satellite images. I cross-referenced it with county records. There was no doubt. Karen's fence was illegal. And cutting down a protected monument tree without authorization. That carried mandatory fines of at least $50,000, probably more. I sat back in my chair, looking at all the documents spread out in front of me. And I laughed. A real genuine laugh. The first one I'd had in 2 years. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, I did research. I read reviews, I asked around. And I found Rebecca Chen. She specialized in property law. She had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. She didn't settle. She didn't back down. She went for blood. I liked her immediately. She had an office downtown, modern, sleek, expensive looking. I brought all the documents, the surveys, the deed, the monument tree certificate. I laid them all out on her conference table. She looked at everything carefully. She didn't say anything for a long time, just read through page after page, taking notes, occasionally taking photos with her phone. Finally, she looked up at me. "Tell me what happened," she said. So I did. I told her everything. The tree, Daniel's proposal, Karen's complaints, the week in Florida, coming home to find the stump. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Do you want to destroy her?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. Rebecca smiled. Good, because that's exactly what we're going to do. She explained the legal situation. The tree was protected under state and federal law. Cutting it down without authorization was a serious crime. The fines alone could be 6 figures. Plus, I could sue for emotional damages, loss of property value, and punitive damages. "How much are we talking?" I asked. "For the tree, between $100,000 and $200,000. Maybe more, depending on how aggressive we want to be." My heart was racing. "And the fence?" "That's even easier. It's a clear-cut case of property encroachment. She's built a permanent structure on your land without permission. We can demand immediate removal plus damages for loss of use of your property over the past 5 years. How long will this take?" "Depends if she's smart and settles quickly. A month or 2 if she tries to fight it," Rebecca shrugged. "Could be 6 months, could be a year, but we'll win. The evidence is overwhelming." I took a deep breath. I want to do this publicly. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to send her a letter. I don't want to give her time to prepare or hire her own lawyer or start spinning this to the neighbors. I want her blindsided. I want everyone to see what happens when you treat people like they don't matter." Rebecca smiled slowly. "Tell me more." I explained Corinne's annual neighborhood party, how it was her big event every year, how she invited everyone, how she used it to show off, to prove she was the queen of the street. "It's in 2 weeks," I said. Rebecca's smile widened. "Perfect." For the next 2 weeks, I became invisible. I didn't leave the house except to buy groceries. I didn't talk to neighbors. I sure as hell didn't talk to Corinne. But I watched her. Every day, I watched her from my window. She was in full party planning mode. Workers setting up a huge white tent in her backyard. Caterers arriving with boxes of supplies. A bartender setting up a full bar. String lights, lanterns, flowers. It was going to be elaborate, expensive, the social event of the season. George told me she'd been bragging to everyone about it. "Biggest party I've ever thrown," she'd said. "Everyone who's anyone will be there." She even put an invitation in my mailbox. A fancy card with gold lettering. "You're invited to celebrate the end of summer. Food, drinks, and great company. Hope to see you there." I didn't RSVP, but I was definitely coming. The day of the party was perfect. Saturday, sunny, 75 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. I could hear music starting around noon. By 2 o'clock, the street was packed with cars. I peeked through my curtains and saw at least 50 people in Corinne's yard, laughing, drinking, having a wonderful time. Corinne was in her element, white linen dress, hair done, perfect makeup, playing hostess, hugging people, posing for photos, holding court. At exactly 3 o'clock, I saw a black sedan pull up. Rebecca got out, wearing a sharp gray suit and carrying a briefcase. 2 men in official uniforms got out of a second car. "Bailiffs." I grabbed my cardigan and walked out my front door. The music was loud. No one noticed me at first. I walked slowly across the street, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Rebecca saw me and nodded. We walked up Corinne's driveway together, side by side. Corinne was standing near the bar, laughing at something one of her friends said. She had a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked so happy, so confident. I stopped about 10 feet away. "Corinne," I said loudly. The music was still playing, but a few people nearby stopped talking, turned to look. Corinne's smile faltered when she saw me. Then she saw Rebecca. Then she saw the bailiffs. Her face went pale. "What is this?" she said. Rebecca stepped forward, professional and calm. "Corinne Whitmore." "Yes." "You've been served." Rebecca handed her a thick manila envelope. Corinne stared at it like it might explode. "What is this?" she repeated, her voice rising. "That," I said clearly, "is a lawsuit for $150,000 in damages for illegally cutting down a federally protected monument tree on my private property." The conversations around us stopped. People turned to stare. Karen's face went from pale to bright red. "That's insane," she stammered. "That tree was on HOA property. We had every right to." "It was on my property," I interrupted. "Fully on my private property, which you had absolutely no right to touch." One of the bailiffs stepped forward. "Ma'am, we also have a court order requiring the immediate removal of the fence structure currently encroaching on Ms. Harrison's land. You have 30 days to comply." Karen looked like she might faint. "What fence?" "The white picket fence in your backyard," Rebecca said smoothly. "It's built 3 meters onto Ms. Harrison's property. According to the original property survey, which we have authenticated with the county, that fence has been illegally encroaching on her land for approximately 5 years. "That's impossible," Karen whispered. "That fence has been there since before I moved in. I didn't build it." "Doesn't matter who built it," Rebecca said. "You're the current property owner. You're responsible for its removal." Karen looked around desperately at her guests. Her friends, her neighbors, everyone was staring. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice shaking. "This is harassment. This is a misunderstanding. We can talk about this. We can." "We're done talking," I said quietly. "You had your chance to talk. Instead, you destroyed something irreplaceable. You thought I was just some sad, lonely old widow who wouldn't fight back. You were wrong." Karen's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the concrete patio. No one moved. No one said anything. The music was still playing in the background, some cheerful pop song, completely out of place. "If you want to contest the lawsuit," Rebecca said, "you're welcome to hire your own attorney, but I should warn you we have ironclad evidence. Property surveys, monument tree certificates, witness testimony. You will lose, and if you drag this out, we'll add legal fees to the damages. Your choice." Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. I looked at her one more time. "You told me I should thank you," I said. "You told me my yard would look better. You told me it was just a tree." I stepped closer. "It wasn't just a tree. It was where my husband proposed to me. It was protected by law, and it was on my property. You had no right, and now you're going to pay for it." I turned and walked away. Rebecca and the bailiffs followed me. Behind us, the party was dead silent. As I crossed the street back to my house, I heard the first whispers starting. Then someone's voice louder, "Oh my God." Then another, "Did she really?" Then Karen's voice, shrill and desperate. "Everyone just calm down. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." But people were already leaving. I heard car doors slamming, engines starting. Karen's perfect party was over. I went inside my house and closed the door. And I smiled. 3 days later, Karen's lawyer called Rebecca. They wanted to settle. Rebecca called me immediately. They don't want to go to trial. Karen can't afford it. She'd have to sell her house. Good, I said. We negotiated for 2 weeks, back and forth. Karen's lawyer tried to get the amount reduced, tried to argue about the tree's value, tried to claim Karen didn't know it was protected. Rebecca shut down every argument. Final settlement, $150,000. The fence removed within 60 days, a formal written apology, and Karen's resignation as HOA president. I signed the agreement. The money hit my account 2 weeks later. I donated $75,000 to the State Forestry Conservation Fund, in my father's name. The other $75,000, I used it to have a memorial installed in my backyard. A professional landscaper came out. We designed it together. A beautiful stone monument right where the tree used to be, surrounded by flowering plants that my dad loved and Daniel used to tend. 2 bronze plaques. One for my father, his name, his dates, and the words, "He protected the past for the future." One for Daniel, his name, his dates, and the words, "He was my home." The memorial was finished 3 weeks ago. It's beautiful. Every morning I make my coffee, and I sit outside and I look at it. And I think about my dad, and Daniel, and the tree. The tree is still gone. Nothing will bring it back. But at least now there's something in its place, something permanent, something that means something. And Karen. She moved. 2 months after the settlement, a for sale sign went up in her yard. She couldn't afford the fence removal and the legal fees and the settlement. She had to sell. I heard she moved 3 towns over, somewhere no one knows her. Good. The new neighbors who moved into her house are lovely, a young couple with a baby. They introduced themselves the day they moved in, brought over cookies, homemade, actually homemade. The husband saw the memorial in my backyard and asked about it. I told him the whole story. His eyes went wide. "You sued the HOA president." "Former president," I corrected. "She resigned." He laughed. "That's amazing." His wife smiled. "Good for you." And you know what? She was right. Good for me. Because here's what I learned. People will always underestimate you if you let them, especially if you're older, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're grieving. They'll think you're weak. They'll think you won't fight back. But they're wrong. I'm 55 years old. I'm a widow. And I just took down the most powerful person in the neighborhood without breaking a sweat. So if there's one piece of advice I can give, it's this. Never, ever underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. Because she just might surprise you.